This video is kindly sponsored by Wren. Hey friends, Elizabeth here from Plant-Based Bride, back again with another video. And today I'm very excited to be setting up my bullet journal for March because I'm bringing back one of my favorite elements that I haven't used for a little while in my bullet journal. Some of you may be able to guess what it is, but this theme is a pretty simple one, a pretty minimalist one, but I think it turns out pretty eye-catching in the end. The theme I'm going with this month is loosely foliage based. I'm drawing a bunch of different types of leaves on these spreads. Maybe I'm trying to convince myself that spring is just around the corner because, to be honest, I'm sick of the snow. I decided to go with a line art style for this foliage using black fine liners, but tried to go for a little bit of a more realistic or detailed style. Each drawing is a different type of leaf, and some of them are based on real types of leaves that I used reference photos for, and a couple of them are just kind of fantasy leaves that I made up in my head that potentially might look like a real kind of leaf, but they weren't based on any reference drawing. They were just poured out of my brain. I am really bad at identifying different types of flowers and plants as much as I really love nature and plants in general. I think they're so beautiful, but I also am just awful at remembering what different kinds are called. For all these drawings, I have sketched a loose idea of the placement and the size and everything in pencil, and then I'm going in with my Cirque Micron fine liners to start with the general shapes and then to go in and add a lot more details, fine lines, veins, texture, shadowy areas to make them a little bit more interesting and also to have them sort of pop off the page a little bit more. I primarily used my Cirque Micron with the 02 nib for the bolder lines and my Micron with the 003 nib for the finer details, but I did also pick up a couple other sizes depending on what I felt I needed, including my 005 and my 01. Once I was happy with the leaves themselves and all the detail and sort of how bold they were, it was time to add that extra special element that I was so excited for this month. If you saw my poll on the community tab on YouTube, you probably already knew what was happening here, and I suppose it would also be in the thumbnail, but I'm adding gold to my spreads this month, and I'm very excited about it. Newer subscribers may not know that I went through a whole year where I used gold in every single monthly theme, and I feel like I burnt myself out a little bit by using gold so much for a whole year. So I've been using it much more sparingly since then, but there is nothing more satisfying to me than these beautiful, super reflective, rich gold watercolors. I'm obsessed with them. They'll be linked in the description box along with all of the other supplies I'm using in this video, as always. But I thought it would be a really nice contrast having these gold backgrounds in different shapes that are a little more structured and symmetrical, and the foliage, which is so much more irregular and natural and asymmetrical. Once the gold backgrounds were fully dried, I grabbed my stamp set and just stamped March on the cover page, and then also my quote on the right-hand side. The quote I chose for this month was, "Exhale it all as stardust and art," which I came across this on Pinterest and just thought it had so much lovely imagery and was such a lovely idea of using the creative process as a way to let go of things that are troubling you. Just exhale all of the tension, all of the struggles, all of your worries, whatever it is, as stardust and art, which is what I'm doing here. Flipping over to the next spread, which is my monthly calendar, and here I'm drawing a bunch of ginkgo leaves coming down from the top of the page. I will never live down the embarrassment of thinking that ginkgo leaves were a type of palm leaf, like a tropical leaf. I think it was my January 2020 plan with me, and I got so many comments implying that I am a very unintelligent human for not knowing. And listen, as I said at the start of this video, I'm so bad at identifying plants. I could look at the same plant or tree or flower every day of my life in my own backyard and still not know what it's called. I'm so bad. It doesn't stick at all. So I apologize. I was not familiar with ginkgo leaves before I created that theme, and now I will never forget what they are and where they are from. So anyways, they are beautiful though, and I do love them. So I thought I would bring them back in another theme. Ironically, another theme that is black and white and gold all over. Starting again with the really basic outline of the leaves, getting just the shape down, and then going back in with my finer nibbed pens and getting into the nitty-gritty of all those little details that make the leaf seem more three-dimensional and real and really, again, pop off the page. My tip for this, something that I find works well for me, is to start with a really fine nib, so my 003 in this case, and draw all of the lines I want to get into this leaf all at the same line weight, just really light and thin across the board. And then go back in, still with a 003, maybe up to a 005, but really still sticking with quite a fine nib, and just adding areas that are a little bit darker, using more pressure, or just going over the same area a couple times, just getting areas of darkness and light, concentrating more of the darkness around the edges of the leaf and also on the edges of the different segments of the leaf. I feel like when I was looking at the various reference photos I had for different types of leaves, this came up over and over again. These darker areas tended to be in similar places, even on different types of leaves. So I tried to stick with that to get, again, that more realistic look. While all that line work was drying, I wanted to create my calendar, and this month's calendar is basically the same as last month's calendar, but I put it on the other page on the right side instead of the left. I really liked how last month's calendar spread turned out. I thought it looked really nice and minimalist and clean and simple, so I decided to go for that again. My notebook is a B5 size notebook, and each of the daily spaces on this calendar are 3 spaces by 3 spaces, which is enough for me for how I use my monthly calendar, but of course, your mileage may vary depending on how heavily you tend to use your monthly calendar. The bulk of my planning and scheduling goes on in my weeklies, as y'all know, but I do like to have a monthly calendar for reference, for dates, for events, for appointments, just to keep my life more organized. Once all the ink was dry, it was time to add my background, and I decided to go with another circular background on this calendar spread. I love this gold watercolor because once you activate it thoroughly with water, it goes on almost completely opaque. There might be a couple areas that are a little less opaque that I might go over one more time, but I just love how thick and luscious and brilliant and shiny this paint is. It's so satisfying. The final touch for the spread was stamping in March, and my calendar spread is done. Flipping over to my weekly spreads, I'm going to start by cutting out my tabs. For those who ask, again, I'm in a B5 size notebook, so take that into account in terms of the scale of the tabs in comparison to the size of my notebook, but the tabs that I create are a 2x2 diagonal, so 2 spaces over, 2 spaces up for the diagonal, 4 spaces tall along the flat side, and then another 2x2 diagonal coming back in. I'm doing the same setup for my weeklies as I did in February because so far I'm really liking how it's working for me. The layout here is to have a work task list for the month and a personal task list for the month on the left and right side, respectively, that I can see no matter what weekly I'm on, and then have all my weeklies in the center with space for each day of the week and a section for priority tasks for that week specifically that I want to make sure I get around to, even if they don't have a specific day they're assigned to. And after filming my bullet journal flip through for the second half of 2022, which I'll link for you if you haven't seen it yet, if you want to see all of those spreads after the pen, what they look like after I've used them, one recurring theme in that one was the fact that I really struggled to keep up with decorating my weeklies. That if I made my first weekly really fancy in my plan with me, I typically made all of my other weeklies incredibly simple after that. And that's part of the reason why I've sort of shifted to very, very simply weeklies with no decoration at all and just setting them all up at the same time when I film my video. But it occurred to me in making that video that I could still do something along the lines of what I've done in the past, which is adding art in the areas that you see no matter which weekly you're on at the time of creating my plan with me, so that I can still feel like my weeklies are decorated a little bit, even though the weeklies themselves are super simple. So I'm trying that out this month with little decorations in either corner, incorporating 2 more drawings of foliage of leaves with little backgrounds. I'm really hoping that these won't take away too much space from my work and personal task lists for the month, but we shall see. Every month is an experiment when I try something new. So worst case scenario, I can always add a little piece of paper that folds out for more space or just use a Post-it or something, as I love to do. The tabs themselves, I am also painting gold because honestly, I've missed gold tabs. There's just something extra satisfying about them for me. Now we're coming to the end of this video, but before I show you the final flip through of all these spreads, I want to take a quick moment to chat with you about this video's sponsor, Wren. I don't know about you, but the anxious thought spiral that keeps me up most often at night is the climate crisis and feeling like I'm not doing enough to help. I distinctly remember learning about the threat of climate change while I was in elementary school and being simultaneously terrified and baffled that more wasn't being done. In my adulthood, I've made several changes in my life in an effort to be more friendly to our planet, including going vegan a decade ago and focusing on shopping secondhand and from sustainable brands as often as possible. Wren is doing their part to help regular people like you and me make a real difference by calculating and then offsetting our own individual carbon footprints through the funding of a variety of carbon reduction projects in 4 categories. Technology, like their mineral weathering project in Scotland. Tree planting, Wren members help plant millions of native species every year. Policy, like Wren's Clean Air Task Force. And conservation, like Amazon rainforest protection. We all know the real villains in this climate change story are huge corporations who are more focused on their bottom line than the destruction they leave behind, and the governments who are unwilling to stand up to them. But the older I get, the more I recognize that even if the changes I can make as an individual might be small, I feel way better when I'm trying to do my part to make a difference. And Wren is the perfect place to start. Wren can help you to determine areas where you can reduce your carbon footprint and help you offset what's left, since no one can reduce their carbon footprint completely to zero. The best part is that once you sign up to make a monthly contribution, you will receive updates once a month from the projects you support, with photos and details about each tree planted and acre reforested. It will take a lot to end the climate crisis, but you and I can start doing our part today by taking action and visiting wren.co. The first 100 people who sign up using the link in the description will have 10 extra trees planted in their name. I highly recommend you head to wren.co to learn more about their projects and calculate your own carbon footprint, and I'd love to know what yours is if you want to share in the comments down below. Here's mine. Thanks again to Ren so much for sponsoring this video and for providing a simple yet effective method for regular people to band together to make a big difference for our planet. And now the final flip through of these spreads. I'm really loving the black and white and gold, very minimalist look of these spreads. They're so simple, but they still really pack a punch, thanks to the super shiny metallic gold paint. It felt really good to bring out my gold watercolors again, and I hope y'all enjoyed this setup as much as I enjoyed making it. Thanks so much to my patrons for your support. If you at home want to join the squad, feel free. There's a link in the card and in the description box down below. My patrons will be getting printables of this month's art, just as they do every single month. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you made it all the way to the end, leave some sort of nature or plant or leaf emoji in the comments down below so I know you're a real one. Don't forget to check out ren.co. It is so interesting to learn what your carbon footprint is and ways that you can reduce it. And with that, I'm going to get going. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you really soon in my next one. Bye, friends.